Hey, I'm so happy you're interested in my 21-day Libido Jumpstart program. This program is not just about sex. It is also about confidence, self-esteem, pelvic floor health and care. It's about how to have confidence not just in the bedroom, but how to have confidence with yourself, how to know what your needs are versus your preferences, how to communicate them, how to get to know yourself more, how to navigate through hormonal ups and downs, how to support yourself in the aging process, how to balance your hormones. And it is, of course, also about sex and pleasure and how to get more of that. So I hope you'll join me. This is a complete crash course. We're going to go so deep into so many topics, and we're going to set you up on a roadmap through videos, through live calls, through actionable steps, and more. We're going to set you up on a roadmap where you have a plan in place of how to get your want it back, of how to get your pleasure back, but really of how to just rediscover who you are as a self-confident woman that is ready to embrace life with more pleasure, more passion, more love, and a whole lot more fun and less stress. I hope you'll sign up. We'll see you there. Hey, Dr. Diane, your chronic illness expert, talking about chronic fatigue today and a question that I get all of the time, which is, will I always have it? And unfortunately, so many people that get the chronic fatigue syndrome diagnosis are basically told that it's either in their mind or there's no reason for it and that they just have to manage. This is really unfortunate. This is really unfortunate because it's not true. And what I see in my practice all the time is that when we get to the root causes, we actually see chronic fatigue reverse, where we see energy come up. And I have so many stories of people saying things like, wow, I could barely even make it to the grocery store. Or something that oftentimes I'll find people say to me is, when they have chronic fatigue, that on every day they would have to choose between tiny little tasks. Will I do the dishes or will I do the laundry? Will I go shopping today for my groceries or will I clean the refrigerator or whatever? And there are these tiny little tasks. And a lot of times people can only do one of those tasks and they're choosing every day, like what is the most important 20-minute task so they can do something to survive because the chronic fatigue's so bad. And what I see over and over is when we get to the reasons, and I know you've been told, many of you have been told there's not a reason for it, but there's reasons the body gets fatigued. The body just does not get fatigued for no reason. Oftentimes we're told that when the basic labs are normal and there's not a known reason yet, right? So you have to do additional diagnostic testing that is just outside of the lens and the scope of what a lot of doctors are trained to do. So watch my earlier video on what are the possible root causes and subscribe to the channel to get more this month on chronic fatigue. But the idea is, no, you don't have to live with this forever. So much of the time, I would say 95% of the time, what I see is when we get to the root, we can actually reverse this. And I see people from moving from having to make these choices of what am I going to do today to survive, which is my top task because I can only do one tiny, tiny, tiny little thing, to running, to working out, to doing a full life with a lot of activities. And I just see people return to health over and over and over again. So be an advocate for yourself. If we can help you at my clinic, there's information in the show notes. Please join me for my next masterclass on fatigue, which is coming up here this month. And you can register for that by looking in the show notes. And that's it for now. So I will see you on another video. Hey everybody, Dr. Diane, your chronic illness expert here, talking about chronic fatigue syndrome and the big, bad, scary V word. So what is the big, bad, scary V word? Is virus. And of course, virus really got a huge look at with all the chaos that has gone on in the world over the past couple years. And with the concept of chronic fatigue, we absolutely do want to consider things like long haul and virus related or virus symptoms related to that, or chronic fatigue symptoms related to that. Beyond that, I want to talk about other chronic hidden viruses. So we see that certain viruses such as shingles, such as the herpes virus family, such as HPV, such as EBV, CMV, there's others as well that can actually lay dormant and then reemerge and become more active. And a lot of these viruses, when they're active, can have a fatigue component of them. A lot of times viruses are not really easy to determine if they are active in the blood or not. There are some tests that give us some information, but frankly, the tests are just not perfect. And so it's very difficult to know for sure when we're looking at some of these tests. Say you had mono, or EBV is one of the viruses that causes mono. Many people have this early in their life and not everybody knows. And I see this when I test people all the time for antibodies, for immune proteins that signify that somebody had a mono infection. And then I ask them, how did the mono go? And they didn't even know they had it. So sometimes we can have these viruses. They just feel like a cold or a flu. We clear them out. We don't know it's something that's more chronic, like an Epstein-Barr, like a mono type of virus. It lays dormant. and it can be reemerging. And like I said, the tests are not awesome for it. So sometimes it's a reasonable thing if you see a history in the blood of viral activity with some of these components and you're feeling really fatigued. Sometimes it's good to support your body with natural antivirals out there because this can help to clear some of this from the body. And I've seen scenarios where this can help to really improve a chronic fatigue symptom and standpoint. So I really like antivirals. One of my favorite products out there is called BioVegetarian. I really do like antiviral components that are combos of things like echinacea, Oregon grape, golden seal, and then also combining a lot of other nutrients such as vitamin C, vitamin A. Vitamin A is an amazing antiviral. We do need to be a little careful about it because too high of levels, typically you want high levels to support antiviral properties, but too high of levels can cause liver damage. So we want to be careful about that, making sure you're working with a doctor anytime you're using this stuff to monitor liver enzymes and those sorts of things. So all of that is a huge component of what we are looking at here. And then beyond that, you also want to make sure that you are doing other supportive herbs, such as supporting your liver function, your spleen function, and other organs to see if they have any activity that's damaged from a virus. This, I imagine, will raise a lot of different questions. You can go through all of my protocols. I have all of my protocols online for working with stuff like this and bringing your body back to health. And I have my protocols are in my group programs. So my group programs are low-cost programs where you can get a ton more information, a lot more detail than what I cover in these YouTube videos. And in the group program, you have access to my protocols that are about restoring balance and health from a wide variety of imbalances. And you get access to me twice a month to ask me questions. So you can find out about that in the show notes. And that's really it for now. Please do subscribe if this has been helpful. I'll see you in another video. Hey everybody, Dr. Diane, your chronic illness expert here, talking about chronic fatigue and how to work with it, what to do as far as testing and treatment and these sorts of things. And I want to talk today about histamine and chronic fatigue. Histamine is that molecule. A lot of people know it from antihistamines, and antihistamines are allergy medicines essentially. And so histamine is a molecule that is secreted by our body in response to some sort of trigger, and it can lead to a wide variety of things. So we want to make sure that when we're considering chronic fatigue, we do want to consider that there is an allergy root cause to this. So we want to consider histamine. Now, you might have done standard types of skin prick tests where they prick your back typically with something and they're looking for red wheals to show up to show a allergy reaction to something. So that's definitely great to do and you can get information from that. There's other problems though that can lead to higher amounts of histamine. For example, the mast cells. Mast cells are cells in the body that contain a lot of histamine. And when something disrupts these mast cells, they can literally burst open. And that can create a large amount of histamine to be released in the body. That might not trigger your skin prick test to show up positive. So it's possible you have something that is irritating the mast cells that is causing a higher amount of histamine, and it's not going to be identifiable in classic tests. Now, you can test for serum histamine levels. So you can get a blood draw to see what your histamine levels are at. Sometimes that can give you insight to if there's a histamine problem. Another big red flag for having histamine issues that are contributing to some of the chronic fatigue syndrome situation is going to be a high level reactivity to other things. So if you find yourself like reacting to walking by somebody and they have perfume on and you get a headache, or if you have to be very careful about being outside when there's smog and you can eat. I mean, nobody should be outside when there's smog really, but if you realize that you're outside for a very, very short time and you feel awful, more awful compared to, say, your friends or family, that could be a sign sometimes that there's a histamine elevation that is actually triggering some of these reactions and can be leading to some chronic fatigue syndrome. So I wanted to make this video because oftentimes people aren't thinking about histamine and allergies and fatigue, and we absolutely want to consider that. And sometimes allergies, you might not recognize them. Like, we can think oftentimes of allergies can be, the severe allergies are anaphylactic, where it's, medical emergency. But oftentimes we think of allergies and we think of itchy eyes and runny nose, and that happens a lot of times. But for some people, it doesn't. And in some situations, it's just like headachy and a little fatiguey, or maybe a little postnasal drip where you get a little mucus running down the back of your throat. And it can sometimes be a very simple fix to chronic fatigue syndrome, and it can oftentimes be missed. So that's definitely something to consider. I go through a ton of this information and more in my online group programs, where you can get access to me, to a ton of videos like this, to protocols, to lab tests that are not commonly ordered by doctors, where you can order them direct to consumer. Twice a month calls with me to ask me anything. So that is accessible for you guys in the show notes as well. And that's it for now. I will see you in another video. Hey everybody, Dr. Diane, your chronic illness expert, here today talking about chronic illness, chronic fatigue syndrome, and your thyroid. And a lot of people think about fatigue and thyroid being related, and of course they are. But what a lot of people do not realize is the testing that is done is not very thorough to actually determine if you have a thyroid issue. So it's very, very common. People are told that they have a perfectly normal thyroid, and it's actually not normal, and it's causing a lot of the issues. So there's a few things to know. One is the most common test for thyroid is TSH. TSH is a brain hormone. It is not a thyroid hormone. TSH is measured, and then we're told that our thyroid is fine or not fine. What TSH, what this brain hormone is supposed to do when it's functioning well, is it's released, and it tells our thyroid to release thyroid hormone. So when we need more thyroid hormone, when our thyroid hormone is low, what tends to happen is our brain hormone, the TSH, gets really high, because we want the brain hormone to come down at a very high amount to stimulate the thyroid so much to release that thyroid hormone. So that's really important. Now, what is important to think about with this is that we need to actually measure the thyroid hormone. So we measure the brain hormone, TSH, but we also want to measure the thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormones are things like free T3 and free T4. Free T4 is oftentimes measured, but free T4 is a type of thyroid hormone that has no activity, meaning it does not do anything that we think of when we think of thyroid hormone. It doesn't give us energy. It doesn't help our hair. It doesn't help our bowels. It doesn't help our mood. Any of those things we think about with thyroid, this particular form of thyroid hormone does not do that, right? It has to convert to something called free T3 in order to work. So it's common that I will see situations where brain hormone's fine, TSH looks good, thyroid hormone, the non-active, the free T4 looks totally good. And then it's the free T3, the active thyroid hormone, the one that does all the yummy, juicy things that we think of with thyroid. It's the free T3 that is not working. So when we consider all of those things, we want to make sure we're getting all three of those tested. But as I talked about in a video earlier this month, when I was talking about some of the root causes of chronic fatigue syndrome, one of the things I mentioned is another molecule called reverse T3. This particular molecule is super important because reverse T3 will block regular thyroid from working. So you can have all the normal amounts of thyroid in your body, but if you have an elevation of this other molecule called reverse T3, your thyroid hormone will look normal in your blood, but it will not be able to work. And so in these cases, oftentimes thyroid hormone levels, they look normal. Somebody is told they have no problem with their thyroid, but they still have cold hands. They still have eyebrows, falling out, right? They still have fatigue. They still have all of these thyroid symptoms because just because thyroid is being released doesn't mean your cells are able to use it. And you have an elevation of reverse T3. That will mean your cells are not able to use thyroid hormone, right? So you want to make sure you're looking at that reverse T3. You also want to look at thyroid antibodies. These are other things that are telling us if your thyroid is under attack or not. And you can have a perfectly normal thyroid hormone level, but your thyroid could be inflamed and under attack, meaning it's not working at the level that we need it to work, right? So all of these things should be considered when we're thinking about thyroid hormone. So with chronic fatigue, always remember that you want to figure out, is it really your thyroid? Because that's a super basic and easy things to fix. Most people are not having thyroid tests done properly, and they're also not having their labs looked at totally right. So remember, when you are evaluating thyroid hormone function, we're considering not just all of these markers, but the reference ranges. And conventional medicine typically looks at reference ranges when they're trying to rule in or out big, bad diseases. From a functional optimal standpoint, there's different ways to evaluate these lab values. So if you want to see if your lab values are optimal, I'm going to put a web page that I have. It's a chart of optimal ranges. So I'm going to put that in the show notes for you guys as well. So make sure you go and check out those lab ranges. And if you're not in a normal lab range, you also have a thyroid that is not functioning as well as it could be, and that could be a component of your chronic fatigue syndrome as well. So you'll find in the show notes information about how to work with us in my group programs, as well as that direct link to look at the lab test and the reference ranges. I hope this has been helpful for you. Please do subscribe to my channel. Please don't keep me a secret, and share this with your friends and family. I'll see you in another video. I'm so glad that you are interested in my Drain to Desire 21-day jumpstart for libido. And this class, this course is so... Hey, I am so happy that you are interested in my 21-day Jumpstart Libido program. This particular program is really designed to help with self-esteem, self-confidence, communication with your partner, ability to know yourself better. We're going to talk about techniques to help improve vaginal elasticity, to help reduce pelvic pain, to have better orgasms, to know your body more, to experience pleasure. We're going to talk about root causes from a physical standpoint too. You will get access to lab testing. So we will send you a kit to collect your saliva where you can essentially get your cortisol, your stress hormone, DHEA, which is one of the top key nutrients, one of the top key hormones, I should say, related to low libido, but also to anti-aging and more. We're going to test estrogen in all three forms, progesterone, testosterone, on and on and on and on. So we'll go through how to work with some of those root causes, how to bring more blood to your tissue, how to age gracefully, how, even if you don't experience things like pelvic pain and incontinence now, what techniques you should be doing to prevent that from happening, how to have deeper communication and deeper relationships, deeper passion with your partner, and so much more. So we're packing a ton into these 21 days. You will have videos that will go over certain things, actionable steps, handouts, and then you will have weekly calls with me where I will be there to answer your questions, to make sure you are on track, and to make sure that you are putting into place all of the activities that we are going through. We'll also talk about what lab tests mean, what things you can do to repair some of the physical root causes, and so much more. And because this is a container of 21 days, there's also the ability to make it your own. So show up for that first intro class We kick off on January 22nd. Show up for the first intro class. And on that first intro class, you can also ask me anything. So if there's anything that you feel like you want to get out of the course, make sure we include in our conversations, we can talk about that. So this is really designed to be kind of this expedited course in how to improve your libido, improve your relationships, and more. And really want to get everybody like a jump start. So as we move into the passion month, right? Into the passion and love month, that this is about self-love. And this is about love for your partner and love for each other. But it's also about how to deeply connect to yourself, how to have more pleasure, less pain, more joy, more passion, and a deeper knowing of your body and its aging process. So I hope you will sign up. I'm really excited to have you. It's going to be a wonderful group this time, and I look forward to seeing you there. Hey, Dr. Diane, your libido doc here. We're talking about all things novelty this month. And so far, we've talked about things like where to have intimacy, where to have sex in different locations. We've talked about various types of things like role playing. Now, we're going to talk about a way to keep things novel by using toys. That's all things toys today. And there are so many different fun toys on the marketplace. I actually encourage you, if it feels right, if it feels like not too much of an edge, maybe a little edge, to go to a toy store with your partner. This can be a really fun, novel thing, especially if you've never done this before. If you've never been in one of these stores, it can feel intimidating the first time you walk in. But what winds up happening is you wind up having really interesting conversations oftentimes with your partner. It can kind of get you in the mood a little bit to be in the energy of sexuality. And the helpers, the workers there are so wonderful. Every store like this I've been into, the workers have been so helpful and kind and easy to talk to. So if you're in there and you just don't know where to start, feel free. I encourage you to push that edge and to just be very straight with the people there. I've never seen, and I can't speak for anybody else but myself, but to date, I've never seen anybody show any sort of judgment or anything like that. It's just been very kind and open and informative at these types of stores. Now, sometimes that might feel too intimidating. You can also get sex toys at Walmart. One of my favorite companies out there, Plus One, has sex toys even available at Walmart. And if you're new to sex toys, if you're not new to these types of toys, then absolutely go online, like just go find something new, right? There's a lot of different things. I'm teaching a masterclass this month on novelty and how to keep things sexy. So you can look for that in the show notes. And in that class, I'm going to show and tell a lot of different types of toys, as well as go into a lot more detail on how to keep things novel. But for today, I want to make sure that the focus for today is on this little tiny toy here. And this one is actually from Plus One that you can find all over the internet. You can find at Walmart. They're highly, highly, highly accessible. But I like this toy because it's so attainable. It's so tiny. And this is something, if you're bringing a new toy into partner play, it's a really easy toy to bring in because it's easy to combine with a wide variety of positions. You can cup it in your hand. You can use it externally on the clitoris. Sometimes it actually feels really nice on the testicles as well, but definitely warn your partner and experiment with that with a lot of conversation. I don't see this typically going well for like surprise. So typically the way to introduce something like this is to check it out ahead of time. So you know where the buttons are. This one's super easy. It has a hole right here, invisible hole. It just recharges into the wall, and then it just has a button right here, and you'll feel it vibrate when it's turned on, and you can see a little light when it's turned on. So it's super easy to use. But what I've seen is if this is introduced in the middle of a intimate act, then sometimes it can be really jarring. Sometimes it actually can cause men to have performance anxiety. I've seen women too. So it's usually good to check it out, see what it does, see how to operate it, tell your partner about your interest in using it ahead of time. And then it's not a surprise if you reach over. And, I really encourage you in the way you talk about this, and in some of the other conversations you'll see on my YouTube channel and my classes on communication. We talk about how to introduce conversations like this, but talk about it in a way of adding to, not because there's a problem in, like adding to, want to explore things, want to continue to find ways to keep passion or get back to passion. And it's just a way to mix things up and keep things novel. And the other thing I love about combining something like this with sex and with the actual penetration, it can certainly be used without. But one of the things I love about combining that with sex is that oftentimes if there is a need to go a little bit faster, and oftentimes men can reach climax a lot faster than women, and women oftentimes don't reach climax through penetration. So if any of those things are happening, this can actually bring that window to a shorter time. Now, I'm big fan of having days and having sex dates that are very, much more long and luxurious. But the fact of the matter is sometimes, you have 10 minutes and sometimes you have 20 minutes and that's what you have, right? So if you are in a situation where it's like, okay, that's what you have in that moment, this can help bring that window to enjoyment, to pleasure, to orgasm much closer between men and women. And that's really what I would have to say about this. Really consider all things novel, right? What I like a lot about a lot of these toys too, a lot of these toys will come with like pictures of positions and you can try things in positions. But remember, this month is about trying new things. So we've talked about role playing, we've talked about different places around the house or out in the world of where you can mix things up. Well, now we can talk about combining things. So it's like, what if you combine that chair with this toy? Right? So when you think of these novel things and then you start combining these novel things with your long-term partner in new ways, the amount of novel things can actually become quite infinite when we are creative. So make sure you check in the show notes there for a link of where to find this. And also, you'll also see there information about my upcoming masterclass on novelty and all things novel. So look for that as well. You'll find that in the show notes. And that is it for this particular video. Again, I'm Dr. Diane, your libido doc. I'll see you in another video. Hey, I'm so happy you're interested in my 21-day Libido Jumpstart program. This program is not just about sex. It is also about confidence, self-esteem, pelvic floor health and care. It's about how to have confidence, not just in the bedroom, but how to have confidence with yourself. How to know what your needs are versus your preferences, how to communicate them, how to get to know yourself more, how to navigate through hormonal ups and downs, how to support yourself in the aging process, how to balance your hormones, and it is, of course, also about sex and pleasure and how to get more of that. So I hope you'll join me. This is a complete crash course. We're going to go so deep into so many topics, and we're going to set you up on a roadmap through videos, through live calls, through actionable steps, and more. We're going to set you up on a roadmap where you have a plan in place of how to get your want it back, of how to get your pleasure back, but really of how to just rediscover who you are as a self-confident woman that is ready to embrace life with more pleasure, more passion, more love, and a whole lot more fun and less stress. I hope you'll sign up. We'll see you there.